Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to AI for Good. My name is Bastiaan Kwast from the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, and I have the privilege of introducing today's session, Standardization Ensuring Trustworthy Digital Society Enabled by AI Technology, as part of a two-part series on standardizing trustworthiness in AI, featuring, including others, Director Jessup Lee of the Telecommunications Standardization Bureau of ITU, Jong-hae Choi, the president of the Telecommunications Technology Association from Korea. ITU is the United Nations Specialized Agency for Information and Communication Technologies, and also the organizer of AI for Good, in partnership with 38 UN sister agencies, ACM, and co-convened with Switzerland. For today's seminar, we're counting on your active participation to create an engaging discussion. And for this, we will be using the Q&A functionality, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. Additionally, there is the chat functionality, which you can use to discuss with other participants in our seminar today. Please make sure to send your message to all panelists and attendees so that everybody can see your message. And with that, it's now time for me to hand it over to our moderator for today, Mr. Kyung Chol Gu, Vice President of the Telecommunications Technology Association. Hello, Mr. Gu. How are you?
How are you? It's good. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much to all participants and distinguished guests for joining this webinar. I would like to sincerely welcome you to today's AI for Good session on the standardization ensuring a trustworthy digital society enabled by AI technology. Bastiaan already said which is organized by the ITU and the TTA. My name is Kyung Chol Gu from TTA and moderator of the session today. Actually, TTA stands for Telecommunications Technology Association. You should call the TTA just the TTA. Which is the non-profit standards development organization in the field of ICT in Republic of Korea. Actually, Mr. Jong-hae Choi, President of TTA, will introduce each mission and activity in detail during the session of the our session. When it comes to our session, I would like to draw your attention to brief introduction, as you already noted in the introduction of the AI for Good page. AI technology is rapidly spreading and leading innovation across the various industries and the society. However, on the other side, unexpected social issues and concerns are emerging. Accordingly, the trustworthiness of AI becomes a core value to solve the technical limitation of AI, as well as to prevent risk and side effects in the process of utilization of and the diffusion. You already know the many countries are taking the lead in developing policies, strategies, and technologies to secure the trustworthiness of AI technology. In this regard, we organized this webinar for two sessions. And the first one is for today, looking into policies and strategy of AI trustworthiness in the ITU, as well as various countries. For the second session, please keep in mind the next Tuesday, 7th of December, we will discuss technologies to ensure trustworthiness of AI and refine the direction of the standardization in the future. For today, we will have 5 distinguished speakers from ITU and TTA, SDO, and the Korea, European Commission, and Japan. Originally, the whole speakers were announced as 6, but there will be a 5 presentation for today. That's saying that we did not reach expert of the United States. So please your understanding would be very much appreciated. As a usual webinar, already Bastiaan said that we encourage you ask a question in the chat box bottom of the screen, and I will take some questions with the speakers after each presentation. Okay, it's time to get started main session. I would like to begin with Dr. Jessup Lee, Director of ITT Definitely, I think that Dr. Lee is a celebrity in the field of ICT standardization. So I do not need to introduce him in detail, but one thing I would like to say is that he is running for Deputy Secretary General for the IQT Pp.1. Please root for him. Okay, so good morning, Dr. Lee.
Good morning, very good morning, everyone.
Okay. Yeah, I really appreciate your presence here out of your busy schedule. Okay, Dr. Lee, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Very good day, everyone. I try to show this my screens. I hope everybody look at my presentation now. Seems so. So I want to talk about today is a trustworthy in tech and AI. Normally, we use of this language trustworthy in very conceptual level to express of this, to describe the relationship between the objects or between the humans. So we use of this language word trust in conceptual level. However, the word trust is becoming more attention from the engineering level as well. Identify one of categories of communicating between the object, between the humans, and between object and humans. Similar as we start quality of service, the move to the quality of experience, suddenly we talk about security and also privacy. And now, since we have this more online environment, trust, the language trust become part of this engineering domains. Especially taking into account the pandemic, some people claims pandemic is fake pandemic, not only a virus pandemic, fake pandemic. So we are very much worried about in our working environment, online environment, how we can trust the worth of this information, how we can trust of these infrastructures. So because of this trust, it become more attention of this today. In this regard, ITU studies on the issue to define of this trustworthy environment in ICT domains. As of today, ITUT, we have more than 300 recommendations. The recommendation is ITUT standards related with the trust in various series, like showing of this F series, J series, P series. But we also have some of our recommendations providing general frameworks to make trust into step down into the deep down into the engineering domain. This is Y series. Why the 3050 series, as shown in this slide, provides some of basic ideas how we can handle trustworthy into the engineering domains. Today, I mainly use of those recommendations to explain how ITUT's understanding of this trust. And ITUT recommendation was the 3052 provide us some definition of trust and the trusted environment. So we define, our members define trust is measurable, not just the conceptual level. Trust is measurable belief or confidence, getting something accumulated value from past history. I mean, this is experience, accumulated value from the experience, past experience, and also expecting value for the future. So this should be measurable. So trust is quantitatively or qualitatively calculated and measured. This is very important. So to do this, one of our recommendations identify some of parameters, how we can quantitatively and qualitatively calculate, measure and calculate. So we have some of parameters. And this recommendation also provides some of definition of a trusted environment. As this is ICT, information and communication technology enabled environment, providing set of technical and regulatory conditions between interacting entities. Interacting entity means between objects, object and humans, and even human to human. But we do not forget of this. Trust has a multidimensional concept. So from the technology and the social implications, that is the basic of this, the definition of trust in ITUT recommendations. So some of our recommendations provide what is the requirements for a trusted environment in ICT infrastructures. They define 4 important elements. First one is predictability. So all participating entities, they have capabilities to predict the outcome of their interactions. If this is not predictable, it's very difficult to say this is trustworthy environment. So predictability is quite an important element to define of this trust. Second one is exchanging information should be comply with the common minimal security requirements, not changed. So the following of this minimal security requirements is another important element for requirements for the trusted environment. Third one is interoperability. So following of these inter-network connections to make of this our interactions. So these inter-network connections should be provide unified interactions. So each participants have same experience. This should be independent of technical infrastructures used. So this interaction is unified interactions. And finally, the availability of administration services. So provision should be enough to support continuous customer support. So those 4 elements, predictability, information security, interoperability, availability of administration services, are basic requirements to build trusted environment in the ICT infrastructures. We understand this on the global scale, trusted environment is not possible without ICT interoperability. So ICT is very essential roles provide a building trusted environment. So this is a basic element. So we need very strong, but it's a very reliable ICT infrastructures. And the recommendation also identifies some of basic principles, how these ICT infrastructures for creating of this trusted environment. I don't want to touch on all these details, but I just cut of this, the themes of these principles, like non-discrimination is a very important thing, and the technology neutrality, functional equivalence, and the unification, scalability, equal reliability of the infrastructure, legalization of electronic document, and the client-oriented architecture and systemization. Those are basic principles for creation of trusted environment in ICT. So all ICT infrastructures and services should be comply with those basic principles. ITUT recommendations, we are divided of the 3 different spaces: physical space, cyberspace, and the social space. Social space on top of this cyber space, having some social communities. So we identify 3 spaces. Each space has their own trust, as shown in here. And those 3 spaces, different trust is enough to support of this trust provisionings. So each area of this ICT infrastructures, that is a certain role, how to ensure these trust levels in each space. This is a very high level diagrams, but so we understand how we can working together with this trust in different space. Why I'm showing of this is today we are talking about digital society. Digital society should be consist with physical space, cyberspace, and social space. So this is why ITUT already engaged with this the trustworthiness in ICT domain. Then looking for what is trustworthy of AI? The question is, does AI trustworthy? To answer that, we have to look at this basic component of AI. As you know, this AI composed with algorithm and data. Algorithm, as we understand, is very efficiency is important, and neutrality, transparency, these are very important elements. In case of data, integrity, security, privacy also very important element. But you also understand algorithm has such dynamics, so many varieties, following of these differences with the people's culture and the geographical location of this history, some of applications, uses, many other factors. This algorithm should be different, many varieties. Data, there are also some of a variety, but we wish data should be unique. There's no difference by any factors. That is the meaning of this integrity. Whether the people, the color of people's cultures, whatever say, data should be remain as unique. So in this regard, we are very challenged. Now, today's situation, we have many fake data. Time to time, it's very difficult to believe of this, give some of trust, credit on the data. Even in algorithm, we are also challenged. This is a neutral, or this is not biased. This is very challenging for us. And second question is, what are most influence of AI? So for that also, we have to look at again of this basic component of AI. AI is algorithm of this composite with the algorithm with data, but specific applying for the specific services and applications. So algorithm and data benefit is tailoring for many cases, tailoring for the people, tailoring for the country, tailoring for the region. This is one of benefit of this, why we have to use of this algorithm with the specific data. So, but we understand that there are many specific services and application areas. There are many problems and the different solutions. So how we can match of these two different domain with these many problems and different solutions, how we can tailoring for a specific purpose, specific person. I believe this is a really challenging area. We have to find some of the solution to challenge of that. So in this regard, ITU, we are working on AI. So as I shown of this, we try to utilize this algorithm to enhance our performance and quality of the service, ensure this integrity, neutrality, and find out some of application models. We try to ensure this data, genuinity and the security, trust, exchangeability of this data in this regard is very important. So ITU, we are working with this benchmarking model to set up of this reference algorithm and the reference data to provide the benchmarking of trials for anyone who have a data to check the testing of this data is verified or not to fit for that specific purpose. And anyone has of algorithms and want to verify this algorithm is working for reference, properly working for specific applications, use of this reference data. This is our work in IQ. And AI for Good today is our platforms to facilitate many areas of this, how AI force for good. I'm very happy the TTA now join with us this AI for Good, and in terms of this how Standard works, Standard is helping for the trustworthy digital society. This AI for Good is the United Nations platform, and all year round and always online, organized by ITU with 30 UN organizations, the co-convened with Switzerland and Switzerland. So our objective of this, our work is we identify practical applications of AI, try to find the solutions for global impact and progress towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So ITU as a UN agency, we are the meeting of this UN Sustainable Development Goals is a very critical mission for us. So we are working for that. As you know, this UN SDG, we just less than 10 years. So we hope AI, we believe AI holds great promise. So we hope this AI will support of this Sustainable Development Goals, definitely ITU standard as well. We understand some of our analysis showing AI is, even we have AI has certain negative impacts, but most of these 17 goals, we see AI have a very positive impact. So we expect AI will continue to support of this UN Sustainable Development Goals. So as I conclude my presentation of today, it's the time to move the needle to ensure this trustworthy digital society. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you very much. Dr. Lei is a very impressive and very wonderful presentation. Especially IQ works on AI, and the last page is the positive impacts outweigh the negative impacts. Is very good signal, and your motto "time to move to the needle" is resonated with me. Actually, I cannot find this moment. One of just I checked my
I don't say any question now.
No. It's I checked the chat box.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. Okay, I pick up the one question from our participant. I read the following. I wonder what direction it is desirable to approach standardization with AI technology from the IQ's point of view, based on ICT, and how to cooperate with the companies that are rapidly occupying the existing AI technology market. Can you suggest a method? This is the question. Please answer this question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So look at the current situation. Many of the industry, even small, not only big giant industry, even small and medium entrepreneurs, they are very active to engage with AI. So AI domain is very wide. I don't believe we can standardize AI itself, because as I said before, AI, especially algorithm, is very diverse, and this algorithm should be fitting to each specific cases. Like, not like me is saying all Asians like me. Yeah, I'm just Korean. So we have certain difficulties. How we know this, that each country looks like Asian, but something different. Their historical background also different. Those industries, they try to tailoring specific purposes, specific persons. So taking into account of this variety of this possibility, we don't believe this AI itself, algorithm itself is the subject for standard, but as I showed in this our benchmarking models, we may standard domain, standard organization will help to ensure this algorithm is good for neutrality or good for integrity. We need a kind of some reference models, how we can ensure this algorithm is working well. That's not necessarily say this is standard. But in terms of data, we need a standard because data should be unique, interoperable, exchangeable. Without standard, it's impossible. So we need a standard. Whether there are many standard organizations, but we have to ensure certain standard, and then between standard, different standard, we have to ensure interoperability, exchangeability of data. But AI, we may need some kind of some reference models to ensure those key elements, how we can use of this AI for trustworthy, even different applications. So in this regard, we expect those industries and also many service and application providers communicating with standard organizations, especially ITU. We are welcome of your contribution to make that kind of platforms, networks, ensure this the common platforms for AI algorithms. Hope this is the answer for you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. We have no time, but this is a very important issue. So I would like to give us one more question from the floor. The question is that as some sectors are still worried about using AI for a critical area, like nuclear plants fields, since AI reliability research is still lacking, do you see a promising improvement in this field? This is a question. Thank you.
Yeah, so my answer is quite promising. Still, AI is not yet everything, especially like a nuclear plant is very important element. Recently, we have another webinar with AKO, so about how we can AI support also nuclear plant and nuclear energy. So we try to identify some problems, difficulties to how AI to solve that. I don't want to say currently today AI is complete and perfect, but we know, we understand AI, and let me say, we understand the very good perspective and the benefit of AI. And then we have to continue to working together with the specific domains like the nuclear plant experts, getting together with ICT experts, especially AI expert. Then we have to improve every day. We have to improve of this security and the safety and trust of this AI in their specific applications. We could not stop it. We should not stop it. We have to continue to progress our development. Then we will reach one day quite safe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee. Is a very excellent answer. I am focusing on the strong cooperation with the various field experts to improve the more secure AI system. Okay, thank you very much. It's very wonderful, very productive presentation. Okay, thank you very much. Even we are online this webinar, please keep a big hand in mind. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the second presentation. I would like to invite my Mr. Young Choi, President of TTA. He will give his presentation with the pre-recorded video due to his inevitable schedule. Please be understanding. Before listening to his presentation, I would like to introduce Mr. Choi briefly. Before he joined the TTA, he worked for Ministry of Science and ICT of Korea as Director General of Bureau of Internet Convergence Policy, Radio Policy, International Cooperation, etc. As well as Presidential Committee on the Fourth Industrial Revolution as Head of Secretariat. His title is a TTA Strategy for Trustworthy of AI. Please sharing the video. Thank you. Floor is yours.
Welcome everyone. I'm Chol, the President of TTA of Korea. I'm very pleased to be hosting the AI for Good event together with ITU, and I would like to thank all of you for participating in this event. In particular, I would like to express my deep gratitude to the speakers who gladly give presentations at this event. As far as I understand, TTA is the first standard development organizations to host the AI for Good event in collaboration with ITU since its inception in 2017. Although discussions on AI standardization have begun internationally, I believe it's very meaningful to have this event at this time, shifting from technology development to standardization. ITU and TTA set the theme of this workshop as standardization to ensure a trustworthy data society enabled by AI technology. Through the network economy in 1990s and the internet-based platform economy in 2000, now our society is rapidly moving into an era of digital economy, where daily life is super intelligent, hyper-connected, and virtualized, affected by AI and data. AI technology that leads this digital transformation is expected to accelerate the innovative growth of the entire industry by converging among different industry sectors and creating new industries as well. However, technological and social progress by utilizing AI technology will not be possible unless the risks and side effects of AI are resolved. One case from Korea early this year, Facebook Messenger-based AI chatbot named Iruda, running gender-biased data, was caught in controversy over discriminating against the disadvantaged and minorities. Recently, a serious error occurred in Facebook's recommendation algorithm in classifying videos featuring black men as prime mates, and the US government has opened a formal investigation into Tesla's autopilot system after 11 accidents have been reported since 2018, resulting in 17 injuries and 1 death. In order to maximize the benefits of AI and minimize the risks and side effects of AI, many countries are devising regulatory and policy measures to secure AI trustworthiness. In the midst of this trend, the Korean government also announced human-centered strategy to realize AI trustworthy for everyone in May this year. In line with this government policy, TTA said standardization and development testing and certification system on AI trustworthiness as a top priority within our recent business strategy in order to create environment for reliable AI implementation and the foundation for utilization of AI safely. First, let me talk about standardization. Korea is actively participating in international standardization in the field of AI trustworthiness, such as ISO IEC JTC1 SC 42. In particular, Korean experts are leading the development of international standards, such as explainable AI and data quality in AI, as project editors from the last year. Additionally, we are planning to take part in the new project on AI system testing, which deals with the evaluation criteria and method for AI system quality. With these experts and the various stakeholders, TTS will focus on standardizing on foundational technology and verification method of AI trustworthiness, as well as high quality of AI data to expand AI convergence services enabled safety and trustworthiness. In addition, TTA is researching on the level of requirement for trustworthiness, which AI product and services must possess, and is developing verification technology required for each level. TTA plans to standardize AI trustworthiness use cases and requirements derived through this process. Consequently, TTA will develop procedures and methods verifying the trustworthiness of AI systems and standardize them step by step. Furthermore, TTA is leading the development of standards for quality management and the verification method throughout the life cycle of AI data, including data labeling to secure and utilize high-quality data, which is a key element of trustworthy AI system and services. Meanwhile, in the field of testing and certification, TTA plans to establish trustworthiness verification framework of AI technology and convergence service, and introduce testing and certification system for anyone that can use it with confidence by minimizing the social risks and side effects arising from the utilization of AI. TTA has been researching methodology to secure safety and trustworthiness of software and systems and providing consulting services on this area since 2015. Recently, it has been expanding into convergence systems such as CPS, IoT, and digital twin, where AI is utilized. At the same time, TTA has been carried out a government project to verify quality of data labeling since 2019. So far, over 200 types of data, including data for cancer diagnosis, has been verified. TTA standardized quality requirements and the common criteria of data labeling derived from this project. In addition, in order to secure the quality and interoperability of data labeling in various fields, such as video, text, and autonomous driving, we are also standardizing reference criteria such as data format, element, and properties. Based on this expertise and experience in safety, trustworthiness, and quality management, TTA recently drafted AI Trustworthiness Development Guidebook, which provides the requirement and the verification items that AI engineers should consider when developing AI systems. This guidebook will be developed more systematically and specifically in each application, and we also plan to implement a comprehensive system to verify AI trustworthiness by establishing infrastructure such as verification platforms and also providing consulting service. In addition, with regard to the introduction of a national certification system on AI trustworthiness in high-risk areas, TTA will closely work with government and stakeholders in preparing legal and institutional basis, as well as detailed verification criteria and procedures. We believe that our contribution to the international community would be expanded through international standardization with the outcome of domestic standardization and testing and certification activities related to AI trustworthiness. To achieve this goal, TTA will further strengthen cooperation with various stakeholders and international standardization organizations, such as ITU, and key standard development organizations as well. TTA will continuously proceed standardizing key technology for digital transformation and improve our capability in testing and certification. I hope this event will prove to be a valuable opportunity to gain new insight in realizing AI-based trustworthy digital society through in-depth discussions on policies, technologies, and standardization issues in terms of AI trustworthiness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Young Choi, President of the TTA. If you have any question about the TTA, please email to me or some TTA colleagues later on. And, anyway, even though his presentation is a recorded video, but I would like to give him a big round of applause. Okay. Now move on to the third presentation of our session. I would like to invite Dr. Aram Moon from KISTI, which stands for Korea Information Society Development Institute. I would like to brief introduce her activity. Dr. Moon has been engaged in many government projects on the ethical artificial intelligence at KISTI. She currently focuses on the research about the trustworthy AI, labor market in the intelligent information society, and the policies for users in the algorithmic society based on the scientific evidence. Okay, good evening, Dr. Moon. It's nice to meet you, and I thank you very much for joining this webinar out of your hectic schedule. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for introduction, Dr. Koo, and thank you for having me here today. So let me share my presentation first. Right, so thank you for having me here today. So my name is Aram Moon for Korean Information Society Development Institute. So my institution has contributed to the development of ICT policies in Korea, especially the Center for AI Social Policy that I belong to is analyze the social and cultural impact of ICT, which includes some potential opportunities and risks presented to society by the result of new technologies such as AI. So since that the topic what I'm going to present today is not perfectly fitted with this standardization discussion of AI technology, but I'm going to cover the other part of Korean national strategy for trustworthy AI, which is AI ethics. Well, from here, so the national guidelines for AI ethics, which was published by the Korean Ministry of Science and ICT in late 2020, suggests diverse values that should be pursued by all members of society to realize human-centered AI. So issued in December 2020, the national guideline of this AI ethics proposes 3 basic principles and 10 key requirements all members society can observe to realize AI for humanity. So these 10 requirements can benefit human beings, help preserve our humanity, and prevent mental and physical harm, and also contribute to the individual well-being and positive social change if realized during the development and utilization of AI. And these 10 requirements are namely guarantee of human rights, protection of privacy, respect for diversity, prevention of harm, public good, solidarity, data management, accountability, safety, and transparency. So after that, in May 2021, the ministry also announced a strategy to realize trustworthy AI to promote human-centered AI. So the strategy presents 3 sub-strategies that deal with this technological, legal, and ethical aspect, as well as 10 implementation tasks to realize these sub-strategies. In particular, this third sub-strategy here, spread AI ethics across society emphasizes some practical means to ethics. The self-checklist that I'm introducing today is what we have prepared as this practical approach to meeting that goal. Right, so but since AI ethics is a relatively new and unfamiliar social norm or code of conduct in the society, so more specific means or tools need to come on stream if individual or some organization are to apply and practice in their daily lives. So, but such approach or some strives impose both a temporal and also a financial burden, but for these very reasons, the concrete means of actions as well as policy support must be established to prevent these national guidelines for AI ethics from being reduced to just a simple declaration. So in fact, major countries or some global organizations recognize some importance of practical measures. For example, after publishing their own AI ethics, European Union also released implementation guidelines and some assessment list. So also recommendation on the ethics of AI that UNESCO released last week proposed these implementation principles and also policy tasks to their member countries. So with this kind of circumstance, our self-checklist was developed with the aim of supporting voluntary efforts by related stakeholders to implement AI ethics principles in their actual work settings. Well, the development of the self-checklist centered around two main objectives. Our first objective was to ensure the high level of relevance for national guidelines of AI ethics and 10 key requirements. To achieve a balance among these 10 requirements, well, we tried to develop questions that corresponded to each of these requirements. And our second objective was to achieve generality. Rather than the questions specific to certain cases or field, we try to design flexible and some expandable questions that could be selected or modified to meet the different goals or characteristics of each industry or field. So this kind of self-checklist will require aims to support, I just mentioned before, like voluntary efforts. So as for its recommended users, we expect individuals and organizations in both public and private sectors to use our self-checklist questions as a reference when they establish the purpose, procedure, and rules related to development or operation of AI system. As for how our checklist is supposed to be used, we recommend that our self-checklist questions be used as a reference during self-inspection or decision-making process, and then reflected in the content when developing internal guidelines or as a part of existing internal rules. So let me briefly introduce the progress of our self-checklist project so far. So from April to September this year, we made various preparations to create the first draft of this checklist. To begin with, we actually established this collaboration system with TTA because this TTA is also working on some creating AI trustworthy development guidebook for developers. So which shares with us the similar group of recommended users. We agreed that the KISS checklist and TTA's guidebook should be based on the 10 requirements of AI ethics in Korea, because we just wanted to minimize some confusion among our target users who may have to follow the several AI ethics guidelines at the same time, but also to accommodate the unique conditions or these differences in recommended users and purpose, we develop our own questions for checklist and questions that recommend corresponded to all the 10 requirements. And TTAs try to identify properties among these 10 AI ethics requirements, and then can be technologically implemented. So after establishing this collaboration system, we also formed the research task force team for our self-checklist. Currently, there exist some other self-checklist examples introduced by the public sector, such as EU, World Economic Forum, or British's ICO. So our team collected these questions from these existing checklists and analyzed how this question corresponded to our 10 key requirements and what keyword, measure, means, and method are used, and which important concepts were repeatedly dealt with. And then also we task force team also collected and analyzed some cases highlighting some negative side of AI, such as, well, UK's controversial the AI grading system for college entrance exam, or the US facial recognition technology for criminals. Among these cases, we paid particular attention to those closely related to the 10 requirements, and then tried to incorporate relevant lessons and consideration into our self-checklist questions. At the same time, we also do some receive in-depth technical and legal consultation on technical accuracy of our questions, and also there are some appropriate connections with the 10 requirements of AI ethics. So as a result of all this kind of effort, we are able to produce this first draft of self-checklist in the mid-September. Well, after that, as a next step, from September to early November, we collected some feedback on this first draft version from experts in academia, industry, or civil organizations. So then the general consensus from this expertise was that the question needed to be streamlined to reduce the self-assessment burden of users and also to increase convenience. Many of the experts also stated that the methods and means mentioned in the questions need to be described in a more concrete way to reduce the subjectivity of the answer. So in response to that, we eliminated some questions that contained ideas considered ineffective or impractical. So also, redundancy in question was reduced by removing questions that suggested different ways of achieving the same goal. Finally, we also reviewed a wide variety of feasible suggestions by the experts and reflected these ideas in our questions. So after this process, we reduced the number of questions from 76 to 47, and also revised more than 2/3 of our questions to reflect this feedback. And then a week ago, right here, we released this revised version of self-checklist through the seminar with YouTube streaming, and we are currently correcting the public opinion. So after finishing this period, we will respond to this feedback and will release the final draft. So from now on, so let me introduce the structure and the main content of our self-checklist. So this is the content of the self-checklist. It includes its background and progress and development, and the table of self-checklist questions, and the details of these questions corresponding to each of 10 key requirements. And in the appendix, we present also our analysis of AI related to this checklist examples, and also a table summarizing the cases highlighting the negative side of AI. And now I would like to introduce some questions in the AI ethics, but due to the time constraint, I cannot go over all the questions, but I will just briefly outline what types of questions we have now. So first, for human rights here, the questions discuss the kind of values and the and to protect and respect basic human rights and autonomy. Second, for protection for privacy, the question asks what efforts are being made to relieve concerns about the violation of personal information and privacy. In particular, we have Personal Information Protection Act in Korea. So the first question in this category specified asks whether the stakeholders is faithfully following this recommendation of this Personal Information Protection Act published by the Korean Personal Information Protection Commission. Third, the respect for diversity. Well, questions examining how the AI system accommodates the diverse social and cultural background of AI users and listen to their opinions to minimize bias and discrimination. Fourth, well, for prevention of harm, the questions ask how the AI system can prevent direct and indirect harms that may be caused when AI is used in a way that goes against its original purpose. They also ask what response measures will be taken if such harms occurs. Fifth, well, regarding public good, the question examined whether the AI system promoted the individual well-being and the public good for society, and also whether the system has the ability to damage the public interest, to incite violence, or cause other side effects. Next is solidarity. We ask how AI can help members for society create a sense of solidarity and communicate while considering the well-being of a future generation and promoting concrete efforts by the global community. In particular, in this part, we ask how well stakeholders can be monitored the latest international effort to create AI standard. As for data management, the questions look into what procedures are available to objectively evaluate data quality management and what internal efforts are being made to prevent the misuse of data beyond its original purpose. Now, regarding the accountability, well, we ask several questions that can help stakeholders clearly define accountability, the action that is required to minimize damages that may occur during the development and utilization of AI. Next, for safety. Since the concept of safety in the AI context includes a warning against reasonable and valid inference by AI, the question tried to confirm whether the AI system can detect in advance such intentional or potential threats and other threats from outside. For final, as for transparency part, the questions inquire whether the stakeholders provide information that can be used to infer how and why the AI system has produced a certain result, and also whether the stakeholder notifies the users that service or product they are using are based on AI system. So details on all the questions covered in the next section. So we also explain why these questions comes up. And also, so the point of these questions must be checked in here. And there, the slide you are looking at now is the example of one requirement, which is respect for diversity. So as you can see, the question is here linked to the requirement are present here. And along with this reason, so why these questions have been suggested and other relevant background information here. And also we have also presented some similar questions from foreign resources as a references and some the private sector's effort here and some case study here. So far, so I have covered the major highlight of our self-checklist that we have been developed in current situation. So we will continue revise and upgrade our self-checklist based on user feedback after this period. But next year, we are going to find and collect some outstanding use cases of the self-checklist questions. Well, there have been many requests for information about how the self-checklist can be utilized to create internal AI ethics guidelines, as well as some requests for sharing some good examples. So in response to that, we are planning to create and provide a case study report to such cases. And the second, we will develop these diverse tools, including online self-assessment toolkit to further enhance the accessibility and convenience of our self-checklist. Lastly, as previously mentioned, that once we distribute the self-checklist next year, it will provide some good opportunities to receive feedbacks from real users. So capitalizing on such a feedback, we will continue to upgrade our questions and discover and analyze outstanding use cases and produce more relevant implementation tools. So that's all I prepared for today's workshop. So thank you for listening, and I will hand my mic to Dr. Koo.
Thank you, Dr. Moon. It's a very precious and very wonderful activity in the Republic of Korea. And I checked the my question. This is now. Okay, it's a little bit long question. Anyway, in my side, in case of the AI ethical issues such as AI chatbot, you said Trey and Iruda in Korea, not only development and service distributor, but also users who maliciously learned it were pointed out that a level of ethical awareness without reflecting this. This voluntary checklist seems to emphasize ethical practice only by developer. That is the question set. Thank you. Please answer.
Yes. Yeah. Well, first of all, the national guidelines of the AI ethics recommends not only developers, but also all members of society. So we are trying to emphasize this effort to all members of society and introduce some different methods to implement AI ethics in their daily lives, considering some unique conditions or features of each group. So today I just introduced the AI trustworthy checklist for developer or some operation part, but we also try to develop some educational curriculum of implementing AI ethics for elementary or middle and high school students. This is also a part of implementation task in the Korean national strategy for trustworthy AI. Well, as our first year of this strategy in education part, there is other research team, and they actually focused on general guideline or curriculum, including main concepts of ideas. And next year, this team will specify some specific curriculums for each grade of student and developing some learning materials and tools. So details of contents and plans are also presented last week in our policy seminar, actually. So if someone interested in the details, so it may check the YouTube. On the YouTube, there is a video for that. So we actually try to make some balances and introduce this make some balances within all the members of society to implement this AI ethics.
Okay, thank you very much. It's actually today the issue is very difficult and a very high level concept, and I think that there are many questions from the chat box, but we have running out of time. So after this session, please personally contact our presenter. Maybe they are kindly response to their activity. Anyway, I would like to wrap up this your presentation here. Thank you very much, Dr. Moon. Please give a big round of applause. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We have two distinguished speakers. Next speaker is that Dr. Juha Heikkilä from the European Commission. He will present on the European policy on the trustworthy of AI. I would like to introduce him very quickly. He is advisor for artificial intelligence in the European Commission, DG Connect. He has been strongly involved in developing the Commission activity in AI and robotics within the DG Connect, and published the AI as part of a lot of deliverables on the AI. Good morning, Dr. Juha Heikkilä. Nice to meet you, even how we met online. Thank you very much for joining this event out of your hectic business schedule. Indeed. Dr. Juha Heikkilä, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ko, and thank you very much indeed for this introduction, and thank you for the kind invitation to come and or to present the European Commission activities, European Union activities virtually at this event. I hope you can hear and see me, the slides well. So, what does the European Union do? Why do we deal with artificial intelligence to begin with? I don't think I need to explain to this audience why we think it's very important. We think that AI has many great benefits, potential benefits for citizens, for businesses, and also for the public interest. But there are some risks that it creates, and there are concerns about the power of AI in the minds of the general public, and therefore we see that from our perspective, we see there are two main categories of risks that are related to artificial intelligence and its use. On the one hand, there is the risk to the safety of consumers and users. So safety aspects is one important category. And secondly, we also see that there are risks related to fundamental rights. And in the European Union, we have the Charter of Fundamental Rights, which you can see as conveying similar principles, ideas as human rights, but it's shaped a bit differently, it's a bit broader. Now, what have we done to advocate, to promote, and to advance trustworthy AI? This is a long line of work which has started many years ago, and most recently we published a so-called AI package in April 2021, so just over half a year ago. And this package brings together, it's a narrative that brings together two aspects. On the one hand, the sort of proposal for a legal framework for artificial intelligence, but also then what we call the coordinated plan on artificial intelligence. So this is what the European Commission has drafted with the help of the member states of the European Union to see how then AI could be developed and how investments could be made in AI in the best possible way. And the goal here is to enable the European Union to become a world-class AI hub, but also at the same time to ensure that AI is and remains trustworthy. So, as I said, this is a long line of work. We first published our AI strategy in April 2018, so more than 3.5 years ago. And already then we outlined this comprehensive approach to artificial intelligence. By comprehensive, we mean that we don't just look at it from the technological perspective, but we also look at it from other angles. So we look at the socio-economic impact of artificial intelligence, for example, labor market impact. But then we also have to make sure that we have an appropriate legal and ethical framework for artificial intelligence. Why is this so important? We think that this comprehensive aspect is a comprehensive approach is important because we need to have trust in this technology, because trust is the sine qua non for the deployment and use of AI. And if we don't have take up, we don't have the benefits. So the benefits don't materialize if we don't have take up, and for take up we need to have trust. After that AI strategy, together with the member states, we drafted the first version of the coordinated plan, which was then revised and now published in its revised form in April 21. An important step here, and this links up nicely with the previous talk by Dr. Moon. We had a high-level expert group on artificial intelligence, which published then their ethical guidelines for trustworthy AI, which also included an assessment list for organizations to check to what extent they are in line with these ethical guidelines. So a practical help, if you like. And these were then endorsed by the European Commission in a communication, as we call these documents, on human-centric AI in April 2019. And then last year, we published the white paper on AI, which sort of outlined our ideas about the regulatory framework, which were then given in more concrete form this April. I should give you a very brief overview on the coordinated plan on AI, the review that we did this year. So we want, by means of this coordinated plan, where we had, as I said, input from the member states, we want to make sure that the European Union remains at the forefront of this technology. So we want to accelerate investments in artificial intelligence to drive a resilient economic and social recovery, which is particularly topical now in the context of this pandemic. And we have significant investments at the EU level in artificial intelligence. So we plan to invest through our programs, the Digital Europe program, which is a program geared towards deployment and capacity building, and the Horizon Europe program, which is research and innovation program, plus then the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is a major package supporting the member states in their recovery from the effects of the pandemic. So through these, we invest heavily in artificial intelligence. So we have more or less doubled our investment in artificial intelligence compared to the last 3 years of the previous framework program 2017 to 2020. And we're planning to invest about 1 billion euros per year in artificial intelligence by the European Union alone at the EU level. Then, of course, there's member states investment and the private sector investment in addition. But we also want to act on strategies and programs to make sure that they are properly implemented and timely implemented so that we have the advantage of AI. And we want to, of course, align the measures and the policy activities so that the member states and the union are in lockstep in attempts to move forward AI and to take it to a higher level. There are 4 key policy objectives in this coordinated plan. We want to set the enabling conditions for AI development and uptake. We want to make the European Union the right place to invest in AI and to develop AI and to use AI. We want to have excellence from the lab to the market. We want to make sure that AI technologies work for people. And finally, we want to build strategic leadership in some key sectors. I will not go into the details here, but I just want to give you the 4 main policy objectives that we have here to make sure that you get the overview. The detail is too much to go into given the time. And we have, of course, the investments to back up this plan, as I said, through our framework programs and other instruments that we have available. So this is the coordinated plan. So this is, if you like, more the technological and investment side on things. And I will now move on to the proposal for a regulatory framework, the so-called AI Act, that was put forward in April in the same package as this coordinated plan. Why do we think it's necessary to regulate AI, and in particular to regulate AI use cases? We are not regulating AI as technology as such, but we want to regulate AI where it matters. So where there is a risk, where the use of AI is such that we think it has major concerns and risks associated with it. Well, AI systems have certain characteristics. They are complex, they can be opaque, unpredictable. They have a certain degree of autonomy, and they can acquire more autonomy, and they use a lot of data. And all these factors, characteristics lead to a certain number of aspects and considerations that, in our view, make it necessary to regulate AI or some uses of AI. So there are safety risks, risks to fundamental rights, as I said, but then the development of AI and its characteristics can also cause legal uncertainty and enforcement questions, and it can lead to mistrust, as I already pointed out. And of course, from our perspective, because the European Union is a union of 27 member states, there is the risk of fragmentation with different member states having different kind of legislation for AI, which would then hamper the functioning of the single market, which we have in the European Union. So we wanted to prevent, on the one hand, the fragmentation of the legal framework in the European Union, but also the fragmentation of the market. The proposal we put forward is a risk-based approach to AI regulation. So this is best pictured as a kind of pyramid. And we have at the base of it, those uses of AI, and I emphasize again, we are talking about uses of AI, not AI as a whole, as a technology. At the base, the largest category of AI uses are those where we see that there is no risk or there is only a minimal risk, and there are no particular restrictions then for those systems. There are some, however, where we see that maybe we need some transparency obligations, and this is also indicated in the proposed regulation. Overall, we think that maybe 80% or more of AI systems fall under the category of minimal or no risk. Then we have the category of high risk, and I will deal with that in a bit more detail presently. This is the category where we think that there should be some measures, requirements put on the systems before they are put on the market. So these systems are permitted subject to compliance with the requirements of this regulation and an ex-ante conformity assessment. And finally, we have the tip of the pyramid, which is the unacceptable risk category. So those are uses of AI which are simply prohibited. Most systems, as I said, they are not high risk. And there are then the idea of perhaps having a possible voluntary code of conduct for these. But I move on to the high risk because we see two main categories of high risk applications, and this is probably the most interesting category from the point of view of the audience. So on the one hand, we consider high risk systems to be made up of safety components of already regulated products. So there is existing legislation concerning medical devices, for example, or machinery. And if AI systems or components are then used as safety components of these regulated products, then these are considered to be high risk because those products are already subject to a third-party assessment under the relevant legislation in those sectors. The second category of high-risk AI uses is uses in the following 8 fields: biometric identification and categorization of natural persons, the management and operation of critical infrastructure, education and vocational training, employment and workers' management, access to self-employment, access to and enjoyment of essential private services and public services and benefits, law enforcement, migration, asylum and border control management, administration of justice and democratic processes. So these are the uses of AI where we think there is inherently a high risk involved, and therefore we think it has to be regulated. And there are then requirements concerning these systems as a result. The systems which are put on the market in the European Union need to then go through the process of conformity assessment in this high risk category. So how does this work? It first has to be determined whether an AI system is a high-risk system under the provisions of this regulation. Then it has to be ensured that the design and development and quality management systems are in compliance with this regulation. Then there has to be the conformity assessment procedure before putting on the market of the AI system. And after that, once that has been done, there is the CE marking, which, if you like, is a sign of approval, seal of approval, and it confirms that the system has gone through the assessment, conformity assessment, and is in compliance with the regulation. And then the system can be put on the market or taken into service. What are then the requirements that concern these high-risk systems? There are 5 different types of requirements, if you like. So on the one hand, they relate to data. So it has to be ensured that the training, validation, and testing data are relevant and representative and not biased. There has to be documentation and design logging features to enable traceability and auditability. There has to be a degree of transparency, and the users will have to be provided with information about how to use the system. Human oversight has to be ensured, so there will have to be measures built into the system or measures implemented by the users to ensure human oversight. And finally, these systems have to be robust, they have to be accurate, and cybersecurity aspects will have to have been taken care of. There also has to be a risk management system in place, but all this in the light of the intended purpose of the AI system. So the intended purpose is quite important here. The providers, but also the users, have certain obligations. So this gives a slightly different perspective on the same thing. So the providers will have to ensure that there is a quality management system in place. There has to be technical documentation. There are logging obligations. Then there has to be the conformity assessment, and the system has to be registered. And then the CE marking will have to be applied. But there also has to be post-market monitoring. And of course, there needs to be collaboration with the market surveillance authorities when necessary. But the users, of course, have to make sure that they follow the instructions of use. They have to ensure human oversight. They have to monitor the system for potential risks and inform the providers and distributors about any incidents. And of course, other legal obligations that are in place also apply. This is a life cycle approach to AI systems. So I have gone through these steps more or less already, but the design has to be in line with requirements. There has to be the conformity assessment, but then there's also the post-market monitoring aspect to this. There has to be an incident reporting system, which enables then the problems and malfunctioning to be reported and taken care of. And potentially, if so required, when there are modifications that are substantial enough, there should be or could be a new conformity assessment. I should point out that the list of high-risk use cases is not cast in stone, but it can be revised. So there's a revision mechanism built into the proposal that we have put forward, so that can change. And another thing that I want to emphasize here is that this is meant to be a proportional proposal, which enables then innovation to thrive, because it only targets those uses of AI which have an inherently high risk. Those 2 main categories that I mentioned, it does not apply to those systems where obviously the risk is not high. So it is important from our perspective also to keep in mind that we need the benefits of these systems. We need to have the innovation, research, and development to thrive, and to have therefore a proportional and targeted regulation in place. Finally, to wrap up, I'll just give you the 4 categories of uses of AI which are prohibited under this proposed regulation. There the risk is considered to be so high, or the uses are not considered to be in line with the values of the European Union, that they cannot be accepted on the EU market. So on the one hand, there is subliminal manipulation resulting in physical or psychological harm. There is the exploitation of children or mentally disabled persons resulting in harm. General purpose social scoring is also prohibited under this proposed regulation, and remote biometric identification for law enforcement purposes in publicly accessible spaces. There are certain exceptions to that, for example, searching for victims of crimes, preventing terrorist attacks and such like, but nevertheless, these are the main categories where we think the risk is too high. So this concludes my presentation. Thank you very much indeed for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joakeller. It's a very comprehensive but a very useful presentation in EU activity. Especially, I am very expressed the 4 key policy objects for AI in Europe is very impressive for me. Anyway, we got one a few questions, and I said, the question says, are there any plans or actual practices to build a mutual trust on AI with the outside of EU countries? That is a question. Please respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Indeed, we are active internationally. So we have both bilateral relations and we are active in multilateral forums. So the European Union is actively engaged in multilateral forums like the Global Partnership on AI. We are also active in G7, in G20, and other constellations. And we are also following the work that is going on in UNESCO, for example. And we have, of course, then interaction. In some cases, we are either members, some cases we are observers, but we do discuss this quite intensively. And we have bilateral relations with all the major players. So we have discussions where we discuss with those countries which have a similar approach, and we see then how this kind of trustworthy AI, human-centric AI, as we want to develop it and further it, how this can be then taken forward more globally. So this forms part of our international activities, and these activities have now intensified over the past 12, 18 months. And certainly now that the AI Act is out and our plans are out, we have a clear plan how to move forward, and our, if you like, approach has been defined in more detail than it was before. So this, in fact, does form part of our activities. Of course, jurisdictions are different, and the decisions taken in different jurisdictions may vary, but we do think it's important to be engaged internationally, both bilaterally and multilaterally.
Thank you very much. Very kind answers. Yes, you focusing on the international cooperation, very important, especially in this field. Anyway, thank you. Okay, I wrap up your presentation. Once again, thank you very much for joining this meeting, and we please give a big round of applause even we online. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Joakeller. Okay, thank you. Okay, this the last but least, our speaker, distinguished Dr. Roy Yoichi Sekimura-san. Good, maybe good afternoon, maybe same time. I would like to express, I would like to introduce his bio. Dr. Sekimura-san will working at the National Institute of Advanced Industrial Science and Technology, so-called AIST in Japan. As far as I know, he also actively participated in the ISO JTC1 SC42 as an expert. Good afternoon, Dr. Sekimura-san. I'm very much appreciate your participation in this event. Indeed, Dr. Sekimura-san, floor is yours. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Chairman Dr. Chol. I very appreciate the introduction. And today, maybe my talk is just concentrate on the Japanese standpoint of how to enable and some trustworthy AI. And so I will, let me see. Oops. Oops. Oh, okay. I will, let me see. My screen is a little bit tough to move. Oops. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to pick my screen into the, oh, okay, shared screen. Okay, let me see. Sorry, take time. And then I'll change my screen into this mode. And then, oops. Okay, can you see the full screen mode?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so let me begin my presentation. Thank you. And today I'd like to talk about some standardization strategy for trustworthiness in AI in Japan. And especially I'm working for the AISC, that means the National Institute for Advanced Research Science and Technology. So it means I will briefly talk about what's going on about our side at the R&D and standardization strategy in Japan. And first of all, maybe it might be better to share what trustworthiness means. And then after that, currently we have some published document that is ISO IC TR 24028, and that was published in the last year. And in that document, the trustworthiness is defined as ability to meet stakeholders' expectation in a verifiable way. And this is a very important point that anyway, the trustworthiness must have some aspects that can be verified in technical way. But this seems that the trustworthiness is very little bit easy to understand. However, there is a footnote and at note 2 that means characteristics of trustworthiness include reliability, availability, resilience, security, privacy, safety, accountability, transparency, integrity, authenticity, quality, and usability. Oh my gosh. There are a lot of features that we need to take care about. From this definition, what we need to think is that what is there any kind of priority or is there any kind of structure among these features to consist trustworthiness? But currently, it's exactly under the discussion, even in the standardization body. So we need to anyway think that the trustworthiness must be verifiable. But in that same document, the trust is also defined like this. Trust can be defined the degree to which a user or other stakeholder has confidence that the product or system will behave as intended. That means if the trust or trustworthiness can be defined as something like the confidence, that will be very difficult to define or check whether the trustworthiness is achieved or not. So in this document, anyway, in my presentation, anyway, the trustworthiness or maybe the overall saying the trust should be the verifiable one. But in order to explain about Japanese strategy, I wondered it might be better to start with some overall direction that are set by government. And in Japan, we have some integrated innovation strategy 2021, and that was decided by Cabinet Office. So the top-down, as a top-down strategy, we have some target as defined like in this line that complete the data strategy and transform cyberspace and physical space into society that create a dynamic virtuous circle so that anyone, everywhere, anytime can create a new value by utilizing data and AI with confidence. This is a very, very important sentence for us. That means anyway, in order to make some AI, first of all, we need to think about the trustworthiness or confidence from the society. And if we can break down that into a little bit more, anyway, that we need to realize some reliable data distribution, or maybe we need to realize good infrastructure for use of data and AI, which will have some high reliability. This is my top-down, the top concept, which may have relation with trustworthiness of AI. Also, the technology side, also we have some very, very long-term strategy that means that we need to realize and highly reliable AI. Also, we have such kind of wording. That means anyway, also we have the many features that will support the trustworthy in AI. But one of the most important concept, or maybe the future, maybe exists in reliability. So this is one hypothesis. However, more important thing that currently the AI is evolving every day. I have an experience to make the standardization in SD card and 3G phone in my past career. But in such areas, maybe the standard come after the shipment of products or finalization of R&D. However, currently the one agony to promote the standardization in AI is coming from facts that AI is still evolving. That means even though we need to make it a standard, we always need to have some very, very intimate contact with people in R&D. This is a very, very important point. So of course, I'm coming from the research side, but then I think there should be some synergy between R&D and strategy for the standardization. Fortunately, in Japan and some top-down document, outside the R&D, there are the 4 pillars of the in Japanese government direction, and one of them is that we need to realize a trusted quality AI. This is R&D very big direction. And as the standardization, we also have the wording that the AI quality assurance, including ensuring data quality. Such kind of direction we have. So using such kind of top-down direction, I'm now trying to realize the very usable and attractive standardization direction. Out of the summarizing this direction, for R&D, we need to trust the quality AI, and also the standard AI quality assurance and data quality. This is very important. And I think these 2 directions can have maybe the very positive relation. More specifically saying that in Japan, outside R&D, there are the 3 major public AI research institutes. One is Artificial Intelligence Research Center under ICE. The other is the Center for Advanced Intelligence Project, and we say the AIP. And the other third one is AI Science R&D Promotion Center, that is under the NICT. And 3 centers are dedicated to develop an AI. And many people working for there is researchers to promote the latest updated AI research topics. So the collaboration with people here is very, very important for us to promote and make the new standardization standards. And for your information, and especially as to in ICE, where I'm working, the 4 layers exist to make some new AI result as a research. And one is the core part. The second was trusted quality AI we need to make. And the other was the core system components for AI, and overall saying that they must have the very trustworthy device and architecture for AI. So this is a very basic structure to promote AI research in Japan. From the research point of view, we have 3 pillars to promote AI. And one is easy to construct AI. Second one is AI which cooperate with human being. The third one is trustworthy, reliable AI, where this is exactly related to the trustworthy AI and the trustworthy AI standardization. But specifically saying that what we need to realize under this umbrella, is that one is verification and validation, the other is the quality assessment of AI system and the guarantee of AI system. So this is a very, very important pillars for us. So the working with the people in R&D side who are trying to realize these 3 pillars, I'm always have some communication. This is a very, very important point for us. And moreover, we also wish to be very open to public and very open to other stakeholders in overseas. So as the maybe in a research center centered in this chart, however, we seriously think that overseas collaboration with overseas labs and also maybe the collaboration with other stakeholders are very, very important to promote AI and AI research and AI standardization. This is the example of how we can collaborate with the other stakeholders in the research side, that in Europe and America, and many, many countries we have some relation to collaborate with. As the standard, even though we have many standard research people, we try to make our effort to realize trustworthy AI in the form of the guideline. So this is shows a machine learning quality management guideline that was published this year, and this is exactly open to the public. And we are trying to have the feedback from many stakeholders, especially who are working in overseas. That means a global sense. So this is very important for us to have some first put anyway our effort to be public and have the feedback from our respected stakeholders. This is a very, very important action for us to crystallize our effort. Also, we think that it's very, very important to provide good people to the international standardization. So this is one example that we provide conveners and editors to SC42. But this is just an example. And we also have a strong intention to collaborate with other stakeholders. And day by day, we have the global chat through maybe Zoom, WebEx, and so this is a very, very important point. So summarize my presentation. Anyway, in order to make some trustworthy AI or high quality AI for Japan, our sense, maybe the collaboration with the R&D people and the standardization partners is very, very important for us. So we are quite open to have many collaboration. And this is a very, very essential part for us to promote the standards. And as to standardization, currently, we publish a machine learning quality management guideline and also the data related standards or functional safety related standards. However, these things cannot be achieved without any collaboration with other stakeholders in global sense. So we quite open to collaborate with any type of the stakeholders. If I can say something very personally, this is not an authorized one. However, currently what type of the challenges or discussed among our teams in global sense. One maybe a good topic for AI standardization might be the human-machine team. That means the AI which cooperate with human being that will enhance some value of AI in any world. Because currently, some people, or maybe there is a serious discussion whether AI can be good for society or bad society. In that regard, maybe from technical perspective, we need to realize new technology which appropriately cooperate with human beings might be very, very good topic for us to investigate. The other thing is that maybe the bias handling in AI algorithm and data, this is also becoming very, very serious part for us to realize. Or my colleagues say that this might be very, very difficult still. However, multimodal AI, that means currently the machine learning is using something like the inductive knowledge. However, maybe it might be the good time to merge knowledge in inductive and deductive way. This also may help us to have the better AI for the world. So, but overall saying that, I'd like to, as a conclusion, I'd like to say some words in the conclusion. But anyway, AI is changing day by day, and for us, global teamwork is very, very essential. For that means, I think what we believe, we always need to be very open and honest to the world to collaborate. So thank you very much for your time and thank you for your attention. This is end of my presentation. I'd like to hand over my floor to you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yoichi Sekimura-san. It's very comprehensive, very impressive, the presentation, your activity. Even though we already 7 minutes exceeded planned time, but this is a very important issue. But so I would like to pick just one question from the floor. The question said that regarding verification and validation, could you elaborate on that issue? For example, detailed direction to develop the V&V system or framework? If that is a question, please respond to the question. Thank you.
Oh, oh, I think this is a very, very maybe a good question. And yes, as to the verification and validation, currently we are under the discussion. Exactly today we have some serious discussion in SC42, and many stakeholders. That is not in Japanese stakeholders, but in stakeholders in India and the European countries, and have a very serious interest to realize how to realize this verification validation. But yes, so I think this must be implemented. However, currently this is exactly under the discussion. This is what I can answer currently.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sekimura-san. Okay, I'd like to wrap up your presentation. Once again, thank you very much for joining these wonderful events. I would like to give a big round of applause. Thank you very much, Dr. Sekimura-san.
Thank you very much. I fully appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your participation. Bear with me on the. Even though we already 10 minutes past than planned the schedule, I would like to have a concluding remark. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Actually, trustworthy AI is very high level and difficult issue. We have a lot of takeaway from today's events. I believe this would be a good opportunity for gathering information and gaining insight for standardization of AI trustworthiness in the future. I hope that this can be helpful in developing each nation's policies and strategy on AI trustworthiness. And as well as this workshop paved the way for going forward to a society for humanity in the world. I would like to wrap up today's session by saying that please keep in mind that the next session will be held on the next Tuesday, 7th of December, and look forward to meeting you again at the second session. And I my floor back to the IQ staff. Thank you very much for joining the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gu. We hope you have enjoyed, and a big thanks also to our speakers from today. We hope you enjoyed the webinar today, and we are launching a quick poll that will now appear on your screen. In the meantime, I would like to mention a few things that may be of interest to you. So this afternoon at 3 p.m. we have a new webinar in our Trustworthy AI series hosted by Wojciech Samek, the head of the AI department of Fraunhofer Heinrich Hertz Institute. This talk will be given by Isabel Valera, professor of computer science at the University of Saarland, on algorithmic recourse from theory to practice. As Dr. Gu already mentioned, our next week on Thursday at the same time, so that's 8 a.m. European time or 4 p.m. Korean time, we have our next our part 2 of this series. Please join us then. You can find the links to all this in the chat. And also please have a look at our website, aiforgood.itu.int. And with that, we've reached the end of today's seminar. I'd like to once again thank everybody, our moderator, Dr. Gu, our speakers for today, you, our participants, and our partners, sponsor, and co-convener, Switzerland. And I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. 나가게 하면 되는 거군요.
Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector. Selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector.